Assassin's Creed has finally headed for Japan and created an instant classic. Shadows is the most refined, balanced, and impeccably produced game in this long-running franchise. As Yasuke the Samurai and Naoe the Shinobi, you'll help the people, fight the tyrants, and shape the future of this gorgeous land. The delays were worth it. Ubisoft Montreal has crafted an epic tale. Let's get into all of it in the XboxEra review of Assassin's Creed Shadows. Featuring dual protagonists, Shadows allows you to play the way you want the majority of the time. To begin with, you will switch between Yasuke and Naoe as the story demands, but after a couple of hours, it's all Naoe all the time for a few more hours until you progress deep enough back into the story for Yasuke to re-enter the fray. From that point on, you can choose who you want to play as outside of a few major story missions which take you on both of their perspectives in a set order. Naoe is a shinobi from the Iga region. Her gameplay features the classic Assassin's Creed style full of parkour, stealth, and assassinations. She is far and away the greatest athlete the series has ever seen. Standing roughly 5 feet tall, her agility and speed feel amazing to control. My wife laughed at her over-the-top acrobatics as she did full-on Olympic gymnast dismounts from kinda like any height. Yasuke is known as the Giant throughout the land, standing at an imposing for the time 6 feet tall. With big old broad shoulders, he fights like the brutes from past titles. And while Naoe's stealth is really good fun, Yasuke's brute force will make you feel like a monster. He can also climb a little bit, though I would say find an eagle perch and have him jump off of it, because my god is it funny the way things end up going. He's just so damn big and heavy in his armor that, well, you should see for yourself. As amazing as the characters, story, gameplay, and music are, I think the star of Assassin's Creed Shadow is the world. Back at Gamescom 2024, I got to see a behind-closed-door presentation on the improvements made to the Anvil engine. Wind, leaves, particulate, it's all real, and it's spoiled other games for me. It's a country full of rough weather with distinct seasons, and the Anvil engine handles all of it incredibly well. With heavy winds blowing leaves of all different shades around and rain cascading off of roofs as it builds up on your character. It's friggin' stunning. I mostly played on GeForce Now to start with before shifting to Xbox Series X and a local PC build. No matter where I played the game, it looked and ran well, feeling extremely polished and well optimized. Xbox Series X has 3 modes. You've got Quality, which does 30 FPS, Balanced, which does 40 FPS if you have a 120Hz or 240Hz display. They both look stunning. In the Performance mode, running at 60 FPS looks really good, but you notice some lighting downgrades. Running maxed out on either the GeForce Now's 4080 or my local PC's 7900 XTX, I was able to get a native 4K upscaled from 1440p, well over 60 FPS at Ultra, which is kind of crazy, like the best of the best everything. And it is one of the greatest looking pieces of media I have ever seen. Feudal Japan is a perfect play space for Ubisoft's artists to build a stunningly realized world full of life, color, and danger. Seeing the morning sun shining through the trees, how it properly cascades and shines through various material types, you just have to see it. I can't overstate how amazing the lighting is, and when you add in the physical wind interactivity with grass, bushes, and trees shaking around all the time, it's just an astounding technical achievement, especially that it runs this well. I also have to call out how incredible the facial animations are. It's one of the biggest improvements over past titles. There are times where the characters just look human, and all the cutscenes do shift back down to 30 FPS no matter the platform you're on to up the texture and animation quality to its max level and just look more like a movie is how I took it. But hey, all this brilliant world building wouldn't matter if the gameplay wasn't good, and thankfully it is. We'll start with Naoe and her shinobi style. For fans of the series, she is the greatest playing protagonist yet. Her focus is on parrying white and blue tinged incoming strikes and dodging the red colored ones. Your quick attack is on the right bumper, with heavy on the right trigger. The left bumper is used for parrying, and B is for dodge. The left trigger activates your ranged abilities and ally call-ins, which I'll talk about in a bit, and that's for both Naoe and Yasuke. For melee, she has a katana, tanto, and kasurigama. Her ranged are a kunai, shuriken, bells that can distract people, and smoke bombs. Alongside all of this is the classic hidden blade for her, which allows you to quickly dispatch foes in a single blow, as long as its damage done is for more health segments than your enemy has. And that'll work on pretty much any lower level character. It's just some of the elites and bosses who you can't immediately one-strike. She starts off with her katana, and while it looks real pretty, she's pretty weak in one-on-one fights, especially compared to Yasuke, but like kinda everyone is. I preferred having the Tanto out as it allows for dual assassinations, where she'll use the short Tanto blade and her hidden blade in unison. And you can do it either standing still, or it looks really goddamn cool if you run at a couple of guys and do it, and then she just quickly strikes one while taking out the other in a second later. The Kasurigama is best for groups of enemies, as it's got a big old heavy spike ball on a chain with a sickle at the front, and you can just spin it around like a maniac and bash people in the head. The kunai are heavy throwing daggers that can take out most regular enemies with a single headshot, while the Ninja Star shurikens are best for combos with your melee attacks, as they're super quick but pretty low damage. While that small bell is amazing for distracting enemies away from a particular location, the greatest tool is by far the smoke bomb. Toss one of those at the ground of your enemies and it just makes them lose track of you, which opens them up for straight up assassinations. By the end of the game, my assassinations could take upwards of 7 or 8 health segments off, so using these on bosses led to incredibly quick victories. Now Yasuke, he's a whole different beast. No tools, only weapons, brute force, and heavy armor. For melee, he's got his long katana, the kanabo, and the naginata. Kanabo is a big old poundy stick, and the naginata is a long polearm, or pole sword, more like it. Ranged, he has a long bow and the teppo, which is a big old one-shot rifle. Yasuke does not have a hidden blade. His only assassination is the brutal one. He'll yell, "I'm here" in some various form before either just straight up chopping a guy's head off or smashing it off with a hammer, or chopping both of the guy's arms off and then his head with the pole sword. He is a vicious combatant who can take far more of a pounding than Naoe, which is good because he's really bad at being quiet. And while you begin with the long katana, my favorite was the kanabo. It is an enormous club that he will use to hit home runs with, and the balls are your opponent's heads. They go flying. Assassin's Creed Shadow is a really violent game full of body parts being chopped off or knocked off, with the most brutal hits turning your enemies' domes into a fine red mist. Each character has 6 distinct skill trees. For Naoe, she's got her 3 weapons, along with the tools, assassin, and shinobi. Yasuke has his 5 weapons, along with the samurai tree. Each tree also has dozens of nodes with a few active and many passive abilities. You can have 2 weapons and 2 active abilities equipped at any time for each of them. Your skills can be refunded for free whenever you choose, which allowed me to experiment with different playstyles without any fuss. I'd recommend focusing on adrenaline chunks, which are used to do those active abilities, and health segments removed on assassination. Every tree has multiple levels, and to unlock those, you'll need to complete various tasks which have red icons across the map. These can be a lot of different things, like meditation sessions for Naoe, finding lost scrolls in temples, or horseback archery with Yasuke. The map has dozens, if not hundreds, of these activities, and I spent a long time on them to get the mind points necessary for unlocking the new skill levels. Some may not appreciate that grind, but as I naturally found more than enough of these side activities throughout the main story, I think it's pretty well done overall. The map is real big, spanning a decent chunk of mainland Japan. Utilizing the game's various fast travel points, you can hop between areas and find more activities without issue, and hot damn, is there a lot to do. To do it all, you're going to use the quest board system that slowly fills up a series of circular zones or organization-specific quests. At the start of the game, you'll have your giant main antagonist collective circle, and one for Naoe. As you meet and unlock Yasuke, quests start to show up for him as well. As you enter all of the game's dozens of regions and subregions, more and more quest circles will be unveiled. By the time the full credits had rolled and I had played through the short epilogue section, I was at roughly 50 hours. If I focused on just the main quest, I doubt I probably could have beaten things on normal difficulty in less than 30. With everything left on my map by the end, and how the story leads to potential new adventures, I wouldn't be shocked to see 100+ hour playtimes like people had in Valhalla. Where that game suffered was its pacing, and Shadows does not. I never felt forced to do side content. I focused on and did it because it was so damn good and or fun, but I didn't care that it was Fetch Quest 40 in nature because of how good everything looked, sounded, and played while I was doing it. Yasuke and Naoe each have their own horses, and you can bring up a little take me here guidance line, though there is no press a button to travel along it anymore. I still had a solid 33% of the map or more left to explore after the credits rolled with, God, there was just so many more areas and their factions within them, littering my already enormous quest board. I'm not sure if the number of quests is that much higher than in past games, but the layout is new, and now you always see exactly how much you've completed every time you look to do something new in the game's vast, sweeping story. You get 2 story options when you start things up. It's either choose your own adventure or canon mode. I did the make your own story choices style during my preview and chose to play through the canon version events for this review. For RPG fans out there, you will get a surprisingly different version of events, including the potential losses of allies that do not occur in the canon version based on the choices you make. At one point, I had to rescue a friend that I had been working with throughout 10+ missions. There was no warning or timer on the screen, it just said, rescue their name. I messed up a few jumps and all of a sudden heard a gunshot, and my rescue turned to avenge, and my heart dropped. Quickly reloaded the last checkpoint to see if I could save him, and lo and behold, I could. When I properly executed each jump, I stopped the would-be killer right before his shot was going to hit them and saved my ally, who, from that point on, was an option to assist me in fights and spent their time with me at our home base, which I'll talk about in a little bit. Shadow's story is full of choices and consequences. How do you choose to react, and what does that mean for the future? Can you forgive, and if so, was it the right decision? I saw that side of things in my preview of the game and admit it's not normally what I come to these games for. Like, I love the option of the canon mode, which let me not worry about fully micromanaging my choices for the best outcome. I lucked out and did save my entire family back in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, but I labored over those choices and trying not to mess any of them up. Here, I was safe to just follow Naoe and Yasuke on their path as they found allies, helped the people, and came to terms with their trauma. Speaking of said allies, early on in Naoe's side of the story, you will unlock the Hideout. This home base is a little homestead builder full of buildings, paths you can make, decorations you can place, and pets you can then place and go pet. To get those pets, you literally just find cats and dogs in the world and pet them, and then you get to bring them home. You can buy ox and pigs, and you get quest rewards for stuff. There's hundreds of things to decorate your hideout with. The main buildings that you will need a crap ton of resources to build offer passive benefits like extra scouts, who you will use by default to help you find objectives, because without them, you're just given the main area, a sub-region, and then a sub-region within the sub-region to try and find your target in. Scouts can also take marked resources from inside strongholds, which they'll then retrieve for you at the end of a season. And as Forza Horizon 4 told us, seasons change everything. Very slowly in this game, though you can choose to jump to the next one from the map when it's close enough. You got spring, fall, winter, summer, they're all here, and they're here in different segments. You get early winter, midwinter, late winter, etc. They completely change up the map, they clear your local bounties, and refresh your scout supply. One of the buildings you'll unlock is a scout hub, with many of them dotting each city you visit. They're called kakugeras, I believe. For 800 mon, which is the in-game currency, you can also unlock local ones, which become a fast travel and scout and ally hub spot. There are systems on systems with dojos that let you train up your allies so that they're more powerful when you call them in, and one of the first allies I found is a big old lady named Yaya, who everyone's going to want to have step on them. After upgrading her, she'd run in and chokeslam any poor bastard who dared to get in her way. All of this is done through menu systems. It's not like little in-game mini-game cutscene type things. It's just a straight-up UI thing. But really, if you want to get your interior decorator on, then the hunt for new items and the ease with which you can place them should see dozens and dozens of hours lost. To build the buildings that give you passive benefits, you'll need materials, which are some of the main benefits of looting castles and other various strongholds. Many nights were spent scouring the map for new places to rob from the shadows as Naoe or blast through as Yasuke. And like always, I try not to get into any story specifics to try and keep these early reviews as spoiler-free as possible. Just say that Naoe and Yasuke will travel across various lands with less of a focus on the overarching assassin versus Templar narrative than in previous games. It's still there, and when it comes to the front, it's really well done. To even get to all of this, though, you'll have to go through the new Assassin's Creed Nexus Animus hub launcher thingy. It's the first game to use it, where each of the recent titles from Origins on down gets listed as available to launch as a memory. It's not the Call of Duty HQ app, you're still loading into Assassin's Creed Shadow as its own individual game. It's just the front end that does all the work. You'll have the memories, the Animus-focused story segments, a content library for anything you've unlocked in-game to read about, and a couple of free in-game reward tracks, aka battle passes, along with, of course, a microtransaction store. There are 2 of the battle passes to begin with, and to progress along them, you'll do daily and weekly in-game quests to gain keys. I didn't see any way to buy keys. The actual microtransaction store has its classic Assassin's Creed microtransaction money. Those keys progress you along the track to get items, and there's already a full store that gets you the level appropriate gear with super over-the-top looks. Without spending a penny, though, I had enough in-game microtransaction money from various quests and tracks to buy a couple of items, and had progressed a decent way through the first battle pass. I'm sure people are going to be really annoyed about it for a week or 2, but this isn't new for Assassin's Creed, and it is not egregious like the ones that especially Unity tried. My god, that one was bad. And finally, I would like to talk about the game's vibes. This is feudal Japan, full of nanban like the Portuguese who are slowly trying to dominate the region. As the slave Diogo, you will fight against this to become the samurai Yasuke. Ubisoft Montreal never held back from calling Yasuke what he is, the respect he commanded, nor do they shy away from how terrible his past was. Naoe is a very young woman at the start, living with her father in a small village a few years after her mother's death. Finding out what happened to her mom, who her dad truly is, she gets a hidden blade for a reason after all, and where her tale takes her is a delight. The friendship she forms with Yasuke feels natural, at least in the canon mode. And the way the story leaves off ties up every main question I had early on, while offering up some intriguing new ones for future content in this stunningly realized world. The music itself is a blend of classical tunes and full location-appropriate instruments without ever feeling like a parody. Funky fight music carries battles, while sweeping tracks add to the grandeur of every vista. There is a canon voice mode as well, featuring the correct languages for each character, mainly Japanese and Portuguese as needed. I used this for most of my early playthrough, though I did end up opting for English because my eyes were growing tired from reading subtitles for so many hours straight. The canon voice acting is excellent, while the English voice acting is mostly pretty darn good, with a couple of weaker performances. I was fully satisfied with the game's story and how it ended. Things aren't completely wrapped up with a neat bow, as they do introduce some new questions near the end. I fully expect a lot more content in the future starring these characters, whether it's only expansions or full sequels. I cannot wait to head back to Japan to continue this league's expertly crafted journey. Wrapping things up, there's so much more I could talk about, but spoilers. Assassin's Creed Shadows is the best entry in this series, and it's one of my favorite freaking series, so that's a lot to say. There is no area in which I found it lacking, with expert pacing despite its enormous size. Naoe and Yasuke shine as dual protagonists, as does Japan itself. This one has been my favorite in a year of amazing releases.